Hero and Leander, 1, by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tucker. Hero and Leander, to S.T. Coleridge. It is not with a hope my feeble praise can add one moment's honour to thy own, that with thy mighty name I grace these lays. I seek to glorify myself alone. For that some precious favour thou hast shown to my endeavour in a bygone time, and by this token I would have it known thou art my friend, and friendly to my rhyme. It is my dear ambition now to climb still higher in thy thought, if my bold pen may thrust on contemplations more sublime. But I am thirsty for thy praise, for when we gain applauses from the great in name, we seem to be partakers of their fame. 1. O bards of old, what sorrows have ye sung, and tragic stories chronicled in stone! Sad Philomel restored her ravished tongue, and transformed Niobe in dumbness shown. Sweet Sappho on her love forever calls, and Hero on the drowned Leander falls. 2. Was it that spectacles of sadder plights should make our blisses relish the more high? Then all fair dames and maidens and true knights, whose flourished fortunes prosper in love's eye, weep here unto a tale of ancient grief, traced from the course of an old bas-relief. 3. There stands Abydos, here is Sestos steep, hard by the gusty margin of the sea, where sprinkling waves continually do leap. And that is where those famous lovers be, a builded gloom shot up into the grey, as if the first tall watch-tower of the day. 4. Lo, how the lark soars upward and is gone, turning a spirit as he nears the sky. His voice is heard, though body there is none, and rain like music scatters from on high. But love would follow with a falcon's spite, to pluck the minstrel from his dewy height. 5. For love hath framed a ditty of regrets, tuned to the hollow sobbings on the shore, a vexing sense, that with like music frets, and chimes this dismal burthen o'er and o'er, saying Leander's joys are past and spent, like stars extinguished in the firmament. 6. For ere the golden crevices of morn let in those regal luxuries of light, which all the variable east adorn, and hang rich fringes on the skirts of night, Leander, weaning from sweet Hero's side, must leave a widow where he found a bride. 7. Hark how the billows beat upon the sand, like pawing steeds impatient of delay. Meanwhile their rider, lingering on the land, dallies with love, and holds farewell at bay a too short span. How tedious slow is grief, but parting renders time both sad and brief. 8. Alas, he sighed, that this first glimpsing light, which makes the wide world tenderly appear, should be the burning signal for my flight from all the world's best image, which is here, whose very shadow in my fond compare shines far more bright than beauty's self elsewhere. 9. Their cheeks are white as blossoms of the dark, whose leaves close up and show the outward pale, and those fair mirrors where their joys did spark, all dim and tarnished with a dreary veil, no more to kindle till the night's return, like stars replenished at joy's golden urn. 10. Even thus they creep into the spectral grey, that cramps the landscape in its narrow brim, as when two shadows by old Lethe stray, he clasping her, and she entwining him. Like trees wind-parted, that embrace anon, true love so often goes before 'tis gone. 11. For what rich merchant but will pause in fear to trust his wealth to the unsafe abyss? So Hero dotes upon her treasure here, and sums the loss with many an anxious kiss, whilst her fond eyes grow dizzy in her head, fear aggravating fear with shows of dread. 12. She thinks how many have been sunk and drowned, and spies their snow-white bones below the deep, then calls huge congregated monsters round, and plants a rock wherever he would leap. Anon she dwells on a fantastic dream, which she interprets of that fatal stream. 13. Saying, that honeyed fly I saw was thee, which lighted on a water-lily's cup, when, lo, the flower, enamoured of my bee, closed on him suddenly and locked him up, and he was smothered in her drenching dew. Therefore this day thy drowning I shall rue. 14. But next, remembering her virgin fame, she clips him in her arms, and bids him go, but seeing him break loose, repents her shame, and plucks him back upon her bosom's snow, and tears unfix her iced resolve again, as steadfast frosts are thawed by showers of rain. 15. O for a type of parting! Love to love is like the fond attraction of two spheres, which needs a godlike effort to remove, and then sink down their sunny atmospheres, in rain and darkness on each ruined heart, nor yet their melodies will sound apart. 16. So brave Leander sunders from his bride, the wrenching pang disparts his soul in twain, half stays with her, half goes towards the tide, and life must ache until they join again. Now wouldst thou know the wideness of the wound? Meet every step he takes upon the ground. 17. And for the agony and bosom throe, let it be measured by the wide vast air, for that is infinite, and so is woe, since parted lovers breathe it everywhere. Look how it heaves Leander's labouring chest, panting at poise upon a rocky crest. 18. From which he leaps into the scooping brine, that shocks his bosom with a double chill, because all hours, till the slow sun's decline, that cold divorcer will be twixt them still. Wherefore he likens it to Styx's foul tide, where life grows death upon the other side. 19. Then sadly he confronts his twofold toil against rude waves and an unwilling mind, wishing, alas, with the stout rower's toil, that like a rower he might gaze behind, and watch that lonely statue he hath left, on her bleak summit, weeping and bereft. 20. Yet turning oft, he sees her troubled locks pursue him still the furthest that they may, her marble arms that overstretch the rocks, and her pale passioned hands that seem to pray in dumb petition to the gods above. Love prays devoutly when it prays for love. 21. Then with deep sighs he blows away the wave that hangs superfluous tears upon his cheek, and bans his labour like a hopeless slave that, chained in hostile galley, faint and weak, plies on despairing through the restless foam, thoughtful of his lost love and far-off home. 22. The drowsy mist before him chill and dank, like a dull lethargy o'erleans the sea, when he rows on against the utter blank, steering as if to dim eternity, like love's frail ghost departing with the dawn, a failing shadow in the twilight drawn. 23. And soon is gone, or nothing but a faint and failing image in the eye of thought, that mocks his model with an after-paint, and stains an atom like the shape she sought. Then with her earnest vows she hopes to fee the old and hoary majesty of sea. 24. O King of waves, and brother of high Jove, preserve my sumless venture there afloat. A woman's heart, and its whole wealth of love, are all embarked upon that little boat. Nay, but two loves, two lives, a double fate, a perilous voyage for so dear a freight. 25. If impious mariners be stained with crime, shake not in awful rage thy hoary locks. Lay by thy storms until another time, lest my frail bark be dashed against the rocks. O rather smooth thy deeps, that he may fly like Love himself upon a seeming sky. 26. Let all thy herded monsters sleep beneath, nor gore him with crooked tusks or wreathed horns. Let no fierce sharks destroy him with their teeth, nor spinefish wound him with their venomed thorns. But if he faint and timely succour lack, let ruthful dolphins rest him on their back. 27. Let no false dimpling whirlpools suck him in, nor slimy quicksands smother his sweet breath. Let no jagged corals tear his tender skin, nor mountain billows bury him in death. And with that thought forestalling her own fears, she drowned his painted image in her tears. 28. By this the climbing sun, with rest repaired, looked through the gold embrasures of the sky, and asked the drowsy world how she had fared. The drowsy world shone brightened in reply, and smiling off her fogs, his slanting beam spied young Leander in the middle stream. 29. His face was pallid, but the hectic morn had hung a lying crimson on his cheeks, and slanderous sparkles in his eyes forlorn. So death lies ambushed in consumptive streaks. But inward grief was writhing o'er its task, as heart-sick jesters weep behind the mask. 30. He thought of Hero and the lost delight, her last embracings and the space between. He thought of Hero and the future night, her speechless rapture and enamoured mien, when lo, before him, scarce 2 galleys' space, his thoughts confronted with another face. 31. Her aspect's like a moon, divinely fair, but makes the midnight darker that it lies on. 'Tis so beclouded with her coal-black hair that densely skirts her luminous horizon, making her doubly fair, thus darkly set, as marble lies advantaged upon jet. 32. She's all too bright, too argent, and too pale, to be a woman, but a woman's double, reflected on the wave so faint and frail, she tops the billows like an air-blown bubble, or dim creation of a morning dream, fair as the wave-bleached lily of the stream. 33. The very rumour strikes his seeing dead, great beauty like great fear first stuns the sense. He knows not if her lips be blue or red, nor of her eyes can give true evidence. Like murder's witness swooning in the court, his sight falls senseless by its own report. 34. Anon resuming, it declares her eyes are tint with azure, like 2 crystal wells that drink the blue complexion of the skies, or pearls out-peeping from their silvery shells. Her polished brow, it is an ample plain to lodge vast contemplations of the main. 35. Her lips might corals seem, but corals near stray through her hair like blossoms on a bower, and o'er the weaker red still domineer, and make it pale by tribute to more power. Her rounded cheeks are of still paler hue, touched by the bloom of water, tender blue. 36. Thus he beholds her rocking on the water, under the glossy umbrage of her hair, like pearly Amphitrite's fairest daughter, Naiad, or Nereid, or Siren fair, mislodging music in her pitiless breast, a nightingale within a falcon's nest. 37. They say there be such maidens in the deep, charming poor mariners, that all too near by mortal lullabies fall dead asleep, as drowsy men are poisoned through the ear. Therefore Leander's fears begin to urge, this snowy swan is coming to sing his dirge. 38. At which he falls into a deadly chill, and strains his eyes upon her lips apart, fearing each breath to feel that prelude shrill, pierce through his marrow like a breath-blown dart, shot sudden from an Indian's hollow cane, with mortal venom fraught, and fiery pain. 39. Hear then, poor wretch, how he begins to crowd 1,000 thoughts within a pulse's space. There seemed so brief a pause of life allowed, his mind stretched universal, to embrace the whole wide world in an extreme farewell. A moment's musing, but an age to tell. 40. For there stood Hero, widowed at a glance, the foreseen sum of many a tedious fact, pale cheeks, dim eyes, and withered countenance, a wasted ruin that no wasting lacked. Time's tragic consequence ere time began, a world of sorrow in a teardrop's span. 41. A moment's thinking is an hour in words, an hour of words is little for some woes. Too little breathing a long life affords for love to paint itself by perfect shows. Then let his love and grief unwronged lie dumb, whilst fear, and that it fears, together come. 42. As when the crew, hard by some jutty cape, struck pale and panicked by the billows' roar, lay by all timely measures of escape, and let their bark go driving on the shore, so frayed Leander, drifting to his wreck, gazing on Scylla, falls upon her neck. 43. For he hath all forgot the swimmer's art, the rower's cunning, and the pilot's skill, letting his arms fall down in languid part, swayed by the waves, and nothing by his will, till soon he jars against that glossy skin, solid like glass, though seemingly as thin. 44. Lo, how she startles at the warning shock, and straightway girds him to her radiant breast, more like his safe smooth harbour than his rock, Poor wretch, he is so faint and toil oppressed, he cannot loose him from his grappling foe, whether for love or hate, she lets not go. 45. His eyes are blinded with the sleety brine, his ears are deafened with the wildering noise, he asks the purpose of her fell design, but foamy waves choke up his struggling voice. Under the ponderous sea his body dips, and Hero's name dies bubbling on his lips. End of section 48. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Hero and Leander, 2, by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tucker. 46. Look how a man is lowered to his grave, a yearning hollow in the green earth's lap. So he is sunk into the yawning wave, the plunging sea fills up the watery gap. Anon he is all gone, and nothing seen but likeness of green turf and hillocks green. 47. And where he swam the constant sun lies sleeping over the verdant plain that makes his bed, and all the noisy waves go freshly leaping, like gamesome boys over the churchyard dead. The light in vain keeps looking for his face, now screaming seafowl settle in his place. 48. Yet weep and watch for him, though all in vain. Ye moaning billows, seek him as ye wander. Ye gazing sunbeams, look for him again. Ye winds, grow hoarse with asking for Leander. Ye did but spare him for more cruel rape, sea storm and ruin in a female shape. 49. She says 'tis love hath bribed her to this deed, the glancing of his eyes did so bewitch her. O bootless theft, unprofitable meed! Love's treasury is sacked, but she no richer. The sparkles of his eyes are cold and dead, and all his golden looks are turned to lead. 50. She holds the casket, but her simple hand hath spilled its dearest jewel by the way. She hath life's empty garment at command, but her own death lies covert in the prey. As if a thief should steal a tainted vest, some dead man's spoil, and sicken of his pest. 51. Now she compels him to her deeps below, hiding his face beneath her plenteous hair, which jealously she shakes all round her brow, for dread of envy, though no eyes are there but seals, and all brute tenants of the deep, which heedless through the wave their journeys keep. 52. Downward and still downward through the dusky green she bore him, murmuring with joyous haste, in too rash ignorance, as he had been born to the texture of that watery waste. That which she breathed and sighed, the emerald wave, how could her pleasant home become his grave? 53. Down and still downward through the dusky green she bore her treasure, with a face too nigh to mark how life was altered in its mien, or how the light grew torpid in his eye, or how his pearly breath, unprisoned there, flew up to join the universal air. 54. She could not miss the throbbings of his heart, whilst her own pulse so wantoned in its joy. She could not guess he struggled to depart, and when he strove no more, the hapless boy, she read his mortal stillness for content, feeling no fear where only love was meant. 55. Soon she alights upon her ocean floor, and straight unyokes her arms from her fair prize, then on his lovely face begins to pour, as if to glut her soul. Her hungry eyes have grown so jealous of her arms' delight, it seems she hath no other sense but sight. 56. But O sad marvel, O most bitter strange, what dismal magic makes his cheek so pale? Why will he not embrace, why not exchange her kindly kisses? Wherefore not exhale some odorous message from life's ruby gates, where she his first sweet embassy awaits? 57. Her eyes, poor watchers, fixed upon his looks, are grappled with a wonder near to grief, as one who pores on undeciphered books, strains vain surmise, and dodges with belief. So she keeps gazing with a mazy thought, framing 1,000 doubts that end in naught. 58. Too stern inscription for a page so young, the dark translation of his look was death. But death written in an alien tongue, and learning was not by to give it breath. So one deep woe sleeps buried in its seal, which time, untimely, hasteth to reveal. 59. Meanwhile she sits unconscious of her hap, nursing death's marble effigy, which there with heavy head lies pillowed in her lap, and elbows all unhinged, his sleeking hair creeps o'er her knees, and settles where his hand leans with lax fingers crooked against the sand. 60. And there lies spread in many an oozy trail, like glossy weeds hung from a chalky base, that shows no whiter than his brow is pale. So soon the wintry death had bleached his face into cold marble, with blue chilly shades, showing wherein the freezy blood pervades. 61. And o'er his steadfast cheek a furrowed pain hath set, and stiffened like a storm in ice, showing by drooping lines the deadly strain of mortal anguish, yet you might gaze twice ere death it seemed, and not his cousin Sleep, that through those creviced lids did underpeep. 62. But all that tender bloom about his eyes is death's own violets, which his utmost right it is to scatter when the red rose dies. For blue is chilly, and akin to white, also he leaves some tinges on his lips, which he hath kissed with such cold frosty nips. 63. Surely, quoth she, he sleeps, the senseless thing, oppressed and faint with toiling in the stream. Therefore she will not mar his rest, but sing so low her tune shall mingle with his dream. Meanwhile her lily fingers task to twine his uncrisped locks, uncurling in the brine. 64. O lovely boy, thus she attuned her voice, welcome, thrice welcome to a sea maid's home, my love mate thou shalt be, and true heart's choice. How have I longed such a twin self should come, a lonely thing, till this sweet chance befell, my heart kept sighing like a hollow shell. 65. Here thou shalt live, beneath this secret dome, an ocean bower defended by the shade of quiet waters, a cool emerald gloom to lap thee all about. Nay, be not frayed, those are but shady fishes that sail by, like antic clouds across my liquid sky. 66. Look how the sunbeam burns upon their scales, and shows rich glimpses of their Tyrian skins. They flash small lightnings from their vigorous tails, and winking stars are kindled at their fins. These shall divert thee in thy weariest mood, and seek thy hand for gamesomeness and food. 67. Lo, those green pretty leaves with tassel bells, my flowerets those, that never pine for drouth. Myself did plant them in the dappled shells, that drinks the wave with such a rosy mouth. Pearls wouldst thou have beside? Crystals to shine? I had such treasures once, now they are thine. 68. Now lay thine ear against this golden sand, and thou shalt hear the music of the sea, those hollow tunes it plays against the land. Is't not a rich and wondrous melody? I have lain hours, and fancied in its tone I heard the languages of ages gone. 69. I too can sing when it shall please thy choice, and breathe soft tunes through a melodious shell. Though heretofore I have but set my voice to some long sighs, grief harmonized, to tell how desolate I fared, but this sweet change will add new notes of gladness to my range. 70. Or bid me speak, and I will tell thee tales which I have framed out of the noise of waves. Ere now I have communed with senseless gales, and held vain colloquies with barren caves. But I could talk to thee whole days and days, only to word my love 1,000 ways. 71. But if thy lips will bless me with their speech, then ope, sweet oracles, and I'll be mute. I was born ignorant for thee to teach, nay, all love's lore to thy dear looks impute. Then ope thine eyes, fair teachers, by whose light I saw to give away my heart aright. 72. But cold and deaf the sullen creature lies over her knees, and with concealing clay, like hoarding avarice, locks up his eyes, and leaves her world impoverished of day. Then at his cruel lips she bends to plead, but there the door is closed against her need. 73. Surely he sleeps, so her false wits infer. Alas, poor sluggard, ne'er to wake again! Surely he sleeps, yet without any stir that might denote a vision in his brain. Or if he does not sleep, he feigns too long, twice she hath reached the ending of her song. 74. Therefore 'tis time she tells him to uncover those radiant jesters, and disperse her fears, whereby her April face is shaded over, like rainy clouds just ripe for showering tears. Nay, if he will not wake, so poor she gets, herself must open those locked up cabinets. 75. With that she stoops above his brow, and bids her busy hands forsake his tangled hair, and tenderly lift up those coffer lids, that she may gaze upon the jewels there, like babes that pluck an early bud apart, to know the dainty colour of its heart. 76. Now picture one soft creeping to a bed, who slowly parts the fringe-hung canopies, and then starts back to find the sleeper dead. So she looks in on his uncovered eyes, and seeing all within so drear and dark, her own bright soul dies in her like a spark. 77. Backward she falls, like a pale prophetess, under the swoon of holy divination, and what had all surpassed her simple guess, she now resolves in this dark revelation. Death's very mystery, oblivious death, long sleep, deep night, and an entranced breath. 78. Yet life, though wounded sore, not wholly slain, merely obscured and not extinguished lies. Her breath that stood at ebb soon flows again, heaving her hollow breast with heavy sighs, and light comes in and kindles up the gloom, to light her spirit from its transient tomb. 79. Then, like the sun awakened at new dawn, with pale bewildered face she peers about, and spies blurred images obscurely drawn, uncertain shadows in a haze of doubt. But her true grief grows shapely by degrees, a perished creature lying on her knees. 80. And now she knows how that old Murther preys, whose quarry on her lap lies newly slain, how he roams all abroad and grimly slays, like a lean tiger in love's own domain. Parting fond mates, and oft in flowery lawns bereaves mild mothers of their milky fawns. 81. O too dear knowledge, O pernicious earning, foul curse engraven upon beauty's page, even now the sorrow of that deadly learning ploughs up her brow like an untimely age, and on her cheek stamps verdict of death's truth by canker blights upon the bud of youth. 82. For as unwholesome winds decay the leaf, so her cheek's rose is perished by her sighs, and withers in the sickly breath of grief, whilst unacquainted rheum bedims her eyes. Tears, virgin tears, the first that ever leapt from those young lids, now plentifully wept. 83. Whence being shed, the liquid crystalline drops straightway down, refusing to partake in gross admixture with the baser brine, but shrinks and hardens into pearls opaque, hereafter to be worn on arms and ears. So one maid's trophy is another's tears. 84. O foul arch-shadow, thou old cloud of night, thus in her frenzy she began to wail, thou blank oblivion, blotter out of light, life's ruthless murderer, and dear love's bale, why hast thou left thy havoc incomplete, leaving me here, and slaying the more sweet? 85. Lo, what a lovely ruin thou hast made! Alas, alas, thou hast no eye to see, and blindly slewest him in misguided shade. Would I had lent my doting sense to thee! But now I turn to thee, a willing mark, thine arrows miss me in the aimless dark. 86. O doubly cruel, twice misdoing spite, but I will guide thee with my helping eyes, or walk the wide world through, devoid of sight, yet thou shalt know me by my many sighs. Nay, then thou shouldst have spared my roses false death, and known love's flower by smelling his sweet breath. 87. Or when thy furious rage was round him dealing, love should have grown from touching of his skin, but like cold marble thou art all unfeeling, and hast no ruddy springs of warmth within, and being but a shape of freezing bone, thy touching only turned my love to stone. 88. And here, alas, he lies across my knees, with cheeks still colder than the stilly wave, the light beneath his eyelids seems to freeze. Here then, since love is dead and lacks a grave, O come and dig it in my sad heart's core, that wound will bring a balsam for its sore. 89. For art thou not asleep where sense of ill lies stingless, like a sense benumbed with cold, healing all hurts only with sleep's good will? So shall I slumber, and perchance behold my living love in dreams. O happy night, that lets me company his banished sprite. 90. O poppy death, sweet poisoner of sleep, where shall I seek for thee, oblivious drug, that I may steep thee in my drink, and creep out of life's coil? Look, idol, how I hug thy dainty image in this strict embrace, and kiss this clay-cold model of thy face. End of section 49. This recording is in the public domain. Hero and Leander, 3, by Thomas Hood, read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tucker. 91. Put out these sun-consuming lamps, I do but read my sorrows by their shine. O come and quench them with thy oozy damps, and let my darkness intermix with thine. Since love is blinded, wherefore should I see? Now love is death, death will be love to me. 92. Away, away this vain complaining breath, it does but stir the troubles that I weep. Let it be hushed and quieted, sweet death, the wind must settle ere the wave can sleep. Since love is silent, I would fain be mute. O death, be gracious to my dying suit. 93. Thus far she pleads, but pleading naught avails her, for death her sullen burthen deigns no heed. Then with dumb craving arms, since darkness fails her, she prays to heaven's fair light, as if her need inspired her there were gods to pity pain, or end it, but she lifts her arms in vain. 94. Poor gilded grief, by subtle light, by this with mazy gold creeps through her watery mine, and diving downward through the green abyss, lights up her palace with an amber shine. There, falling on her arms, the crystal skin reveals the ruby tide that fares within. 95. Look how the fulsome beam would hang a glory on her dark hair, but the dark hairs repel it. Look how the purged glow suborns a story on her pale lips, but lips refuse to tell it. Grief will not swerve from grief, however told on coral lips or charactered in gold. 96. Or else, thou maid, safe anchored on love's neck, listing the hapless doom of young Leander, thou wouldst not shed a tear for that old wreck, sitting secure where no wild surges wander, whereas the woe moves on with tragic pace, and shows its sad reflection in thy face. 97. Thus having travelled on, and tracked the tale, like the due course of an old bas-relief, where tragedy pursues her progress pale, brood here a while upon that sea-maid's grief, and take a deeper imprint from the frieze of that young fate with death upon her knees. 98. Then whilst the melancholy muse withal resumes her music in a sadder tone, meanwhile the sunbeam strikes upon the wall, conceive that lovely siren to live on. Even as hope whispered, the Promethean light would kindle up the dead Leander's sprite. 99. 'Tis light, she says, that feeds the glittering stars, and those were stars set in his heavenly brow, but this salt cloud, this cold sea vapour, mars their radiant breathing, and obscures them now. Therefore I'll lay him in the clear blue air, and see how these dull orbs will kindle there. 100. Swiftly as dolphins glide, or swifter yet, with dead Leander in her fond arms fold, she cleaves the meshes of that radiant net the sun hath twined above of liquid gold, nor slacks till on the margin of the land she lays his body on the glowing sand. 101. There, like a pearly waif, just past the reach of foamy billows he lies cast. Just then, some listless fishers, straying down the beach, spy out this wonder. Thence the curious men, low crouching, creep into a thicket brake, and watch her doings till their rude hearts ache. 102. First she begins to chafe him till she faints, then falls upon his mouth with kisses many, and sometimes pauses in her own complaints, to list his breathing, but there is not any. Then looks into his eyes where no light dwells. Light makes no pictures in such muddy wells. 103. The hot sun parches his discovered eyes, the hot sun beats on his discoloured limbs, the sand is oozy whereupon he lies, soiling his fairness, Then away she swims, meaning to gather him a daintier bed, plucking the cool fresh weeds, brown, green, and red. 104. But simple-witted thief, while she dives under, another robs her of her amorous theft. The ambushed fishermen creep forth to plunder, and steal the unwatched treasure she has left. Only his void impression dints the sands. Leander is purloined by stealthy hands. 105. Lo, how she shudders off the beaded wave, like grief all over tears, and senseless falls. His void imprint seems hollowed for her grave. Then rising on her knees, looks round and calls on Hero, Hero. Having learned this name of his last breath, she calls him by the same. 106. Then with her frantic hands she rends her hairs, and casts them forth, sad keepsakes to the wind, as if in plucking those she plucked her cares. But grief lies deeper, and remains behind, like a barbed arrow rankling in her brain, turning her very thoughts to throbs of pain. 107. Anon her tangled locks are left alone, and down upon the sand she meekly sits, hard by the foam, as humble as a stone, like an enchanted maid beside her wits, that ponders with a look serene and tragic, stunned by the mighty mystery of magic. 108. Or think of Ariadne's utter trance, crazed by the flight of that disloyal traitor, who left her gazing on the green expanse that swallowed up his track, yet this would mate her, even in the cloudy summit of her woe, when o'er the far sea brim she saw him go. 109. For even so she bows, and bends her gaze o'er the eternal waste, as if to sum its waves by weary thousands all her days, dismally doomed. Meanwhile the billows come, and coldly dabble with her quiet feet, like any bleaching stones they wont to greet. 110. And thence into her lap have boldly sprung, washing her weedy tresses to and fro, that round her crouching knees have darkly hung. But she sits careless of waves' ebb and flow, like a lone beacon on a desert coast, showing where all her hope was wrecked and lost. 111. Yet whether in the sea or vaulted sky, she knoweth not her lover's abrupt resort, so like a shape of dreams he left her eye, winking with doubt. Meanwhile the churl's report has thronged the beach with many a curious face, that peeps upon her from its hiding place. 112. And here a head, and there a brow half seen, dodges behind a rock. Here on his hands a mariner his crumpled cheeks doth lean over a rugged crest. Another stands, holding his harmful arrow at the head, still checked by human caution and strange dread. 113. One stops his ears, another close beholder whispers unto the next his grave surmise. This crouches down, and just above his shoulder a woman's pity saddens in her eyes, and prompts her to befriend that lonely grief with all sweet helps of sisterly relief. 114. And down the sunny beach she paces slowly, with many doubtful pauses by the way. Grief hath an influence so hushed and holy, making her twice attempt ere she can lay her hand upon that sea maid's shoulder white, which makes her startle up in wild affright. 115. And like a seal she leaps into the wave, that drowns the shrill remainder of her scream. Anon the sea fills up the watery cave, and seals her exit with a foamy seam, leaving those baffled gazers on the beach, turning in uncouth wonder each to each. 116. Some watch, some call, some see her head emerge, wherever a brown weed falls through the foam. Some point to white eruptions of the surge, but she is vanished to her shady home under the deep, inscrutable, and there weeps in a midnight made of her own hair. 117. Now here the sighing winds, before unheard, forth from their cloudy caves begin to blow, till all the surface of the deep is stirred, like to the panting grief it hides below. And heaven is covered with a stormy rack, soiling the waters with its inky black. 118. The screaming fowl resigns her finny prey, and labours shoreward with a bending wing, rowing against the wind her toilsome way. Meanwhile the curling billows chafe, and fling their dewy frost still further on the stones, that answer to the wind with hollow groans. 119. And here and there a fisher's far-off bark flies with the sun's last glimpse upon its sail, like a bright flame amid the waters dark, watched with the hope and fear of maidens pale, and anxious mothers that upturn their brows, freighting the gusty wind with frequent vows. 120. For that the horrid deep has no sure path to guide love safe into his homely haven. And lo, the storm grows blacker in its wrath, o'er the dark billow brooding like a raven, that bodes of death and widows sorrowing under the dusky covert of his wing. 121. And so day ended, but no vesper spark hung forth its heavenly sign, but sheets of flame played round the savage features of the dark, making night horrible. That night there came a weeping maiden to high Sestos steep, and tore her hair and gazed upon the deep. 122. And waved aloft her bright and ruddy torch, whose flame the boastful wind so rudely fanned, that oft it would recoil and basely scorch the tender covert of her sheltering hand, which yet for love's dear sake disdained retire, and like a glorying martyr braved the fire. 123. For that was love's own sign and beacon guide, across the Hellespont's wide weary space, wherein he nightly struggled with the tide. Look what a red it forges on her face, as if she blushed at holding such a light, even in the unseen presence of the night. 124. Whereas her tragic cheek is truly pale, and colder than the rude and ruffian air that howls into her ear a horrid tale of storm and wreck, and uttermost despair, saying, Leander floats amid the surge, and those are dismal waves that sing his dirge. 125. And hark, a grieving voice, trembling and faint, blends with the hollow sobbings of the sea, like the sad music of a siren's plaint, but shriller than Leander's voice should be, unless the wintry death had changed its tone, wherefore she thinks she hears his spirit moan. 126. For now, upon each brief and breathless pause made by the raging winds, it plainly calls on hero, hero, whereupon she draws close to the dizzy brink, that ne'er appall so brave and constant spirit to recoil, however the wild billows toss and toil. 127. O dost thou live under the deep, deep sea? I thought such love as thine could never die. If thou hast gained an immortality from the kind pitying sea-god, so will I, and this false cruel tide that used to sever our hearts shall be our common home for ever. 128. There we will sit and sport upon one billow, and sing our ocean ditties all the day, and lie together on the same green pillow that curls above us with its dewy spray, and ever in one presence live and dwell, like two twin pearls within the self-same shell. 129. One moment then, upon the dizzy verge she stands, with face upturned against the sky, a moment more upon the foamy surge she gazes with a calm despairing eye, feeling that awful pause of blood and breath which life endures when it confronts with death. 130. Then from the giddy steep she madly springs, grasping her maiden robes that vainly kept panting abroad, like unavailing wings, to save her from her death. The sea-maid wept, and in a crystal cave her corse enshrined. No meaner sepulchre should hero find. End of poem. End of section 50. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
Ballad by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Spring, it is cheery. Winter is dreary. Green leaves hang, but the brown must fly. When he's forsaken, withered and shaken, what can an old man do but die? Love will not clip him, maids will not lip him, Maud and Marian pass him by. Youth, it is sunny, age has no honey. What can an old man do but die? June, it was jolly, oh, for its folly, a dancing leg and a laughing eye. Youth may be silly, wisdom is chilly. What can an old man do but die? Friends they are scanty, beggars are plenty. If he has followers, I know why. Gold's in his clutches, buying him crutches. What can an old man do but die? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Autumn by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The autumn skies are flushed with gold, and fair and bright the rivers run. These are but streams of winter cold, and painted mists that quench the sun. In secret boughs no sweet birds sing, in secret boughs no bird can shroud. These are but leaves that take to wing, and wintry winds that pipe so loud. 'Tis not trees' shade, but cloudy glooms, that on the cheerless valleys fall. The flowers are in their grassy tombs, and tears of dew are on them all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Ballad by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Sigh on, sad heart, for love's eclipse and beauty's fairest queen, though 'tis not for my peasant lips to soil her name between. A king might lay his sceptre down, but I am poor and naught. The brow should wear a golden crown that wears her in its thought. The diamonds glancing in her hair, whose sudden beams surprise, might bid such humble hopes beware the glancing of her eyes. Yet looking once, I looked too long, and if my love is sin, death follows on the heels of wrong, and kills the crime within. Her dress seemed wove of lily leaves, it was so pure and fine. O lofty wares and lowly weaves, but hodden gray is mine. And homely hose must step apart where gartered princes stand. But may he wear my love at heart that wins her lily hand. Alas, there's far from russet frieze to silks and satin gowns. But I doubt if God made like degrees in courtly hearts and clowns. My father wronged a maiden's mirth and brought her cheeks to blame, and all that's lordly of my birth is my reproach and shame. 'Tis vain to weep, 'tis vain to sigh, 'tis vain this idle speech, for where her happy pearls do lie, my tears may never reach. Yet when I'm gone, e'en lofty pride may say of what has been, his love was nobly born and died, though all the rest was mean. My speech is rude, but speech is weak, such love as mine to tell. Yet had I words, I dare not speak. So, lady, fare thee well. I will not wish thy better state was one of low degree, but I must weep that partial fate made such a churl of me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Exile by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The swallow with summer will wing o'er the seas, the wind that I sigh to will visit thy trees, the ship that it hastens thy ports will contain. But me, I must never see England again. There's many that weep there, but one weeps alone, for the tears that are falling so far from her own. So far from thy own, love, we know not our pain, if death is between us, or only the main. When the white cloud reclines on the verge of the sea, I fancy the white cliffs and dream upon thee. But the cloud spreads its wings to the blue heaven and flies. We never shall meet, love, except in the skies. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Two by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Welcome, dear heart, and a most kind good morrow. The day is gloomy, but our looks shall shine. Flowers I have none to give thee, but I borrow their sweetness in a verse to speak for thine. Here are red roses gathered at thy cheeks. The white were all too happy to look white. For love the rose, for faith the lily speaks. It withers in false hands, but here 'tis bright. Dost love sweet hyacinth? Its scented leaf curls manifold. All love's delights blow double. 'Tis said this floweret is inscribed with grief, but let that hint of a forgotten trouble. I plucked the primrose at night's dewy noon. Like hope, it showed its blossoms in the night. 'Twas like Endymion watching for the moon. And here are sunflowers, amorous of light. These golden buttercups are April's seal. The daisy stars her constellations be. These grew so lowly I was forced to kneel. Therefore I pluck no daisies but for thee. Here's daisies for the morn, primrose for gloom, pansies and roses for the noontide hours. A white once made a dial of their bloom, so may thy life be measured out by flowers. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Ode to Melancholy by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Come, let us set our careful breasts, like Philomel, against the thorn, to aggravate the inward grief that makes her accents so forlorn. The world has many cruel points, whereby our bosoms have been torn, and there are dainty themes of grief in sadness to outlast the morn. True honor's dearth, affection's death, neglectful pride, and cankering scorn, with all the piteous tales that tears have watered since the world was born. The world, it is a wilderness, where tears are hung on every tree, for thus my gloomy fantasy makes all things weep with me. Come, let us sit and watch the sky, and fancy clouds where no clouds be. Grief is enough to blot the eye and make heaven black with misery. Why should birds sing such merry notes, unless they were more blessed than we? No sorrow ever chokes their throats, except sweet Nightingale, for she was born to pain our hearts the more with her sad melody. Why shines the sun, except that he makes gloomy nooks for grief to hide, and pensive shades for melancholy, when all the earth is bright beside? Let clay wear smiles, and green grass wave, mirth shall not win us back again, whilst man is made of his own grave, and fairest clouds but gilded rain. I saw my mother in her shroud, her cheek was cold and very pale, and ever since I've looked on all as creatures doomed to fail. Why do buds ope except to die? Aye, let us watch the roses wither, and think of our love's cheeks. And oh, how quickly time doth fly to bring death's winter hither! Minutes, hours, days and weeks, months, years and ages shrink to naught. An age past is but a thought. Aye, let us think of him awhile, that with a coffin for a boat rows daily o'er the Stygian moat, and for our table choose a tomb. There's dark enough in any skull to charge with black a raven plume. And for the saddest funeral thoughts a winding sheet hath ample room, where Death with his keen-pointed style hath writ the common doom. How wide the yew tree spreads its gloom, and o'er the dead lets fall its dew, as if in tears it wept for them, the many human families that sleep around its stem. How cold the dead have made these stones, with natural drops kept ever wet! Lo, here the best, the worst, the world doth now remember or forget, are in one common ruin hurled, and love and hate are calmly met. The loveliest eyes that ever shone, the fairest hands and locks of jet, is't not enough to vex our souls and fill our eyes, that we have set our love upon a rose's leaf, our hearts upon a violet? Blue eyes, red cheeks are frailer yet, and sometimes at their swift decay beforehand we must fret. The roses bud and bloom again, but love may haunt the grave of love and watch the mould in vain. Oh, clasp me, sweet, whilst thou art mine, and do not take my tears amiss, for tears must flow to wash away a thought that shows so stern as this. Forgive, if somewhile I forget in woe to come the present bliss. As frighted Proserpine let fall her flowers at the sight of Dis, even so the dark and bright will kiss. The sunniest things throw sternest shade, and there is even a happiness that makes the heart afraid. Now let us with a spell invoke the full-orbed moon to grieve our eyes. Not bright, not bright, but with a cloud lapped all about her, let her rise all pale and dim, as if from rest the ghost of the late buried sun had crept into the skies. The moon, she is the source of sighs, the very face to make us sad, if but to think in other times the same calm quiet look she had, as if the world held nothing base, of vile and mean, of fierce and bad, the same fair light that shone in streams, the fairy lamp that charmed the lad. For so it is with spent delights, she taunts men's brains and makes them mad. All things are touched with melancholy, born of the secret soul's mistrust, to feel her fair ethereal wings weighed down with vile degraded dust. Even the bright extremes of joy bring on conclusions of disgust, like the sweet blossoms of the May, whose fragrance ends in must. Oh, give her then her tribute just, her sighs and tears and musings holy. There is no music in the life that sounds with idiot laughter solely. There's not a string attuned to mirth, but has its chord in melancholy. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Sonnet to My Wife by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. The curse of Adam, the old curse of all. Though I inherit in this feverish life of worldly toil, vain wishes and hard strife, and fruitless thought in care's eternal thrall, yet more sweet honey than of bitter gall I taste through thee, my Eve, my sweet wife. Then what was man's lost paradise, how rife of bliss, since love is with him in his fall, such as our own pure passion still might frame of this fair earth and its delightful bowers, if no fell sorrow like the serpent came to trail its venom o'er the sweetest flowers. But oh, as many and such tears are ours as only should be shed for guilt and shame. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Sonnet on Receiving a Gift by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Look how the golden ocean shines above its pebbly stones, and magnifies their girth. So does the bright and blessed light of love its own things glorify, and raise their worth. As weeds seem flowers beneath the flattering brine, and stones like gems, and gems as gems indeed, even so our tokens shine, nay, they outshine pebbles and pearls, and gems and coral weed. For where be ocean waves but half so clear, so calmly constant, and so kindly warm, as love's most mild and glowing atmosphere, that hath no dregs to be upturned by storm? Thus, sweet, thy gracious gifts are gifts of price, and more than gold to doting avarice. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Two Sonnets by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. 1. By every sweet tradition of true hearts, graven by time in love with his own lore, by all old martyrdoms and antique smarts, wherein love died to be alive the more, yea, by the sad impression on the shore, left by the drowned Leander, to endear that coast forever, where the billows roar, moaneth for pity in the poet's ear, by Hero's faith and the foreboding tear that quenched her brand's last twinkle in its fall, by Sappho's leap and the low rustling fear that sighed around her flight, I swear by all the world shall find such pattern in my act, as if love's great examples still were lacked. 2. Love, dearest lady, such as I would speak, lives not within the humour of the eye, not being but an outward fantasy that skims the surface of a tinted cheek, else it would wane with beauty and grow weak, as if the rose made summer, and so lie amongst the perishable things that die, unlike the love which I would give and seek, whose health is of no hue, to feel decay with cheeks decay that have a rosy prime. Love is its own great loveliness alway, and takes new lustre from the touch of time. Its bough owns no December and no May, but bears its blossom into winter's clime. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Dream of Eugene Aram by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Craig Franklin. The Dream of Eugene Aram. 'Twas in the prime of summer time, an evening calm and cool, and 24 happy boys came bounding out of school. There were some that ran and some that leapt, like troutlets in a pool. Away they sped, with gamesome minds and souls untouched by sin. To a level mead they came, and there they drave the wickets in. Pleasantly shone the setting sun over the town of Lynn. Like sportive deer they coursed about and shouted as they ran, turning to mirth all things of earth as only boyhood can. But the usher sat remote from all, a melancholy man. His hat was off, his vest apart, to catch heaven's blessed breeze, for a burning thought was in his brow, and his bosom ill at ease. So he leant his head on his hands and read the book between his knees. Leaf after leaf he turned it o'er, nor ever glanced aside. For the peace of his soul he read the book in the golden eventide. Much study had made him very lean, and pale and leaden-eyed. At last he shut the ponderous tome with a fast and fervent grasp. He strained the dusky covers closed, and fixed the brazen hasp. O God, could I so close my mind, and clasp it with a clasp! Then leaping on his feet upright, some moody turns he took, now up the mead, then down the mead, and past a shady nook, and lo, he saw a little boy that pored upon a book. My gentle lad, what is't you read, romance or fairy fable? Or is it some historic page, or kings and crowns unstable? The young boy gave an upward glance. It is the death of Abel. The usher took 6 hasty strides, as smit with sudden pain. 6 hasty strides beyond the place, then slowly back again, and down he sat beside the lad, and talked with him of Cain. And long since then, of bloody men, whose deeds tradition saves, of lonely folk cut off unseen and hid in sudden graves, of horrid stabs in groves forlorn, and murders done in caves. And how the sprites of injured men shriek upward from the sod, ay, how the ghostly hand will point to show the burial clod, and unknown facts of guilty acts are seen in dreams from God. He told how murderers work the earth beneath the curse of Cain, with crimson clouds before their eyes and flames about their brain, for blood has left upon their souls its everlasting stain. And well, quoth he, I know for truth their pangs must be extreme. Woe, woe, utter brutal woe, who spills life's sacred stream. For why, methought last night I wrought a murder in a dream, one that had never done me wrong, a feeble man and old. I led him to a lonely field, the moon shone clear and cold. Now here, said I, this man shall die, and I will have his gold. 2 sudden blows with a ragged stick, and one with a heavy stone, one hurried gash with a hasty knife, and then the deed was done. There was nothing left at my foot but lifeless flesh and bone, nothing but lifeless flesh and bone, that could not do me ill, and yet I feared him all the more for lying there so still. There was a manhood in his look that murder could not kill. And lo, the universal air seemed lit with ghastly flame. 10,000 dreadful eyes were looking down in blame. I took the dead man by his hand, and called upon his name. O God, it made me quake to see such sense within the slain. But when I touched the lifeless clay, the blood gushed out amain. For every clot a burning spot was scorched in my brain. My head was like an ardent coal, my heart as solid ice. My wretched, wretched soul I knew was at the devil's price. 12 times I groaned the dead, and never groaned but twice. And now from forth the frowning sky, from the heaven's topmost height, I heard a voice, the awful voice of the blood-avenging sprite. Thou guilty man, take up thy dead, and hide it from my sight. I took the dreary body up, and cast it in a stream, a sluggish water, black as ink, the depth was so extreme. My gentle boy, remember this is nothing but a dream. Down went the course with a hollow plunge, and vanished in the pool. Anon I cleansed my bloody hands, and washed my forehead cool, and sat among the urchins young that evening in the school. O heaven, to think of their white souls, and mine so black and grim! I could not share in childish prayer, nor join in evening hymn. Like a devil of the pit I seemed, mid holy cherubim. And peace went with them, one and all, and each calm pillow spread. But guilt was my grim chamberlain, that lighted me to bed, and drew my midnight curtains round, with fingers bloody red. All night I lay in agony, in anguish dark and deep. My fevered eyes I dare not close, but stared aghast at sleep. For sin had rendered unto her the keys of hell to keep. All night I lay in agony, from weary chime to chime, with one besetting horrid hint that racked me all the time, a mighty yearning like the first fierce impulse unto crime. One stern tyrannic thought that made all others thoughts its slave. Stronger and stronger every pulse did that temptation crave, still urging me to go and see the dead man in his grave. Heavily I rose up as soon as light was in the sky, and sought the black accursed pool with a wild misgiving eye. And I saw the dead in the river bed, for the faithless stream was dry. Merrily rose the lark, and shook the dewdrops from its wing, but I never marked its morning flight, I never heard it sing, for I was stooping once again under the horrid thing. With breathless speed, like a soul in chase, I took him up and ran. There was no time to dig a grave before the day began. In a lonesome wood, with heaps of leaves, I hid the murdered man. And all that day I read in school, but my thought was otherwhere. As soon as the midday task was done, in secret I was there, and a mighty wind had swept the leaves, and still the course was bare. Then down I cast me on my face, and first began to weep, for I knew my secret then was out, that earth refused to keep. Or land or sea, though he should be 10,000 fathoms deep. So wills the fierce avenging sprite, till blood for blood atones, aye, though he's buried in a cave and trodden down with stones, and years have rotted off his flesh, the world shall see his bones. O God, that horrid, horrid dream besets me now awake. Again, again, with dizzy brain the human life I take, and my red right hand grows raging hot like Cranmer's at the stake. And still no peace for the restless clay will wave or mould allow. The horrid thing pursues my soul, it stands before me now. The fearful boy looked up and saw huge drops upon his brow. That very night, while gentle sleep the urchin eyelids kissed, two stern-faced men set out from Lynn through the cold and heavy mist, and Eugene Aram walked between, with gyves upon his wrist. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet for the 14th of February by Thomas Hood, read for LibriVox.org by Jason in Panama. Sonnet for the 14th of February. No popular respect will I omit to do thee honor on this happy day, when every loyal lover tasks his wit his simple truth in studious rhymes to pay, and to his mistress dear his hopes convey. Rather thou knowest I would still outrun all calendars with loves, whose date alway thy bright eyes govern better than the sun. For with thy favor was my life begun, and still I reckon on from smiles to smiles, and not by summers, for I thrive on none but those thy cheerful countenance complies. Oh, if it be to choose and call thee mine, love, thou art every day my Valentine. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Deathbed by Thomas Hood, read for LibriVox.org by Drew Conway. 4th of December, 2016, Kent. We watched her breathing through the night, her breathing soft and low, as in her breast the wave of life kept heaving to and fro. So silently we seemed to speak, so slowly moved about, as we had lent her half our powers to eke her living out. Our very hopes belied our fears, our hopes belied. We thought her dying when she slept, and sleeping when she died. For when the morn came dim and sad, and chill with early showers, her quiet eyelids closed, she had another morn than ours. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Anticipation by Thomas Hood, read for LibriVox.org by Recording Person. Anticipation. Coming events cast their shadow before. I had a vision in the summer light. Sorrow was in it, and my inward sight ached with sad images. The touch of tears gushed down my cheeks, the figured woes of years, casting their shadows across sunny hours. Oh, there was nothing sorrowful in flowers, wooing the glances of an April sun, or apple blossoms opening one by one their crimson bosoms, or the twittered words and warbled sentences of merry birds, all the small glitter and the humming wings of golden flies and many coloured things. Oh, these were nothing sad, nor to see her sitting beneath the comfortable stir of early leaves, casting the playful grace of moving shadows in so fair a face. Nor in her brow serene, nor in the love of her mild eyes drinking the light above with a long thirst, nor in her gentle smile, nor in her hand that shone blood red the while she raised it in the sun. All these were dear to heart and eye, but an invisible fear shook in the trees and chilled upon the air. And if one spot was laughing brightest there, my soul most sank and darkened in despair, as if the shadows of a curtained room haunted me in the sun, as if the bloom of early flowerets had no sweets for me, nor apple blossoms any blush to see, as if the hour had brought too bright a day, and little birds were all too gay, too gay, as if the beauty of that lovely one were all a fable. Full before the sun stood death, and cast a shadow long before, like a dark pall enshrouding her all o'er, till eyes and lips and smiles were all no more. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To a Child Embracing His Mother by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Drew Conway. Love thy mother, little one, kiss and clasp her neck again. Hereafter she may have a son, will kiss and clasp her neck in vain. Love thy mother, little one. Gaze upon her living eyes, and mirror back her love for thee. Hereafter thou mayst shudder sighs to meet them when they cannot see. Gaze upon her living eyes. Press her lips the while they glow with love that they have often told. Hereafter thou mayst press in woe, and kiss them till thine old are cold. Press her lips the while they glow. Oh, revere her raven hair, although it be not silver grey. To early death, led on by care, may snatch save one dear lock away. Oh, revere her raven hair. Pray for her at eve and morn, that heaven may long the stroke defer. For thou mayst live in the hour forlorn, when thou wilt ask to die with her. Pray for her at eve and morn. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Stanzas from Tinley Hall by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Drew Conway. Still glides the gentle streamlet on, with shifting current new and strange. The water that was here is gone, but those green shadows do not change. Serene or ruffled by the storm, on present waves as on the past, the mirrored grave retains its form, the self-same trees their semblance cast. The hue each fleeting globule wears, that drop bequeaths it to the next. One picture still the surface bears, to illustrate the murmured text. So love, however time may flow, fresh hours pursuing those that flee, one constant image still shall show, my tide of life is true to thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet to Ocean by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. Shall I rebuke thee, Ocean, my old love, that once in rage with the wild winds at strife, thou darest menace my unit of a life, sending my clay below, my soul above, whilst roared thy waves like lions when they rove by night and bound upon their prey by stealth? Yet didst thou ne'er restore my fainting health? Didst thou ne'er murmur gently like the dove? Nay, dost thou not against my own dear shore Full break, last link between my land and me? My absent friends talk in thy very roar, In thy waves beat their kindly pulse I see, And if I must not see my England more, Next to her soil my grave be found in thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
II. Composed at Rotterdam by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Drew Conway. I gaze upon a city new and strange. Down many a watery vista my fancy takes a range. From side to side I saunter and wonder where I am. And can you be in England and I at Rotterdam? Before me lie dark waters in broad canals and deep, Whereon the silver moonbeams sleep restless in their sleep. A sort of vulgar Venice reminds me where I am. Yes, yes, you are in England, and I'm at Rotterdam. Tall houses with quaint gables, where frequent windows shine, and quays that lead to bridges, and trees in formal line, and masts of spicy vessels from western Suriname, all tell me you're in England, but I'm in Rotterdam. Those sailors how outlandish, the face and form of each! They deal in foreign gestures, and use a foreign speech, a tongue not learned near Isis, or studied by the Cam, declares that you're in England, and I'm at Rotterdam. And now across a market my doubtful way I trace, where stands a solemn statue, the genius of the place. And to the great Erasmus I offer my salam, who tells me you're in England, but I'm at Rotterdam. The coffee room is open, I mingle in its crowd. The dominoes are noisy, the hookahs raise a cloud. The flavour none of Fearon's that mingles with my dram reminds me you're in England and I'm at Rotterdam. Then here it goes a bumper, the toast it shall be mine, in Schiedam or in sherry, Tokay or hock or Rhine. It well deserves the brightest, where sunbeam ever swam. The girl I love in England, I drink at Rotterdam. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Lines by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by Linda Marie Nielsen, Vancouver, BC. On seeing my wife and 2 children sleeping in the same chamber. And has the earth lost its so spacious round, the sky its blue circumference above, that in this little chamber there is found both earth and heaven, my universe of love, all that my God can give me or remove, here sleeping save myself in mimic death, sweet that in this small compass I behove, to live their living and to breathe their breath. Almost I wish that, with one common sigh, we might resign all mundane care and strife, and seek together that transcendent sky, where father, mother, children, husband, wife, together pant in everlasting life. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Stanzas by Thomas Hood. Read for LibriVox.org by John N. Daly. assigned by Hood's son to the year 1835, but apparently only on conjecture. Is there a bitter pang for love removed? O God, the dead love doth not cost more tears than the alive, the loving, the beloved. Not yet, not yet beyond all hopes and fears. Would I were laid under the shade of the calm grave and the long grass of years, that love might die with sorrow. I am sorrow, and she that loves me tenderest doth press most poison from my cruel lips, and borrow only new anguish from the old caress. Oh, this world's grief hath no relief in being wrung from a great happiness. Would I had never filled thine eyes with love, for love is only tears. Would I had never breathed such a curse-like blessing as we prove. Now, if farewell could bless thee, I would sever. Would I were laid under the shade of the cold tomb and the long grass forever. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.